Welcome in to a Clips and Dip live edition, final Summer League edition, as the Clippers Summer League run with the guys comes to an end. They lose by one. 99-98 was the final as Memphis moves on to take on either Miami or Golden State tomorrow night in the championship game in Summer League. I'm Adam Auslund. This is Clips and Dip. Waiting to see the chat here get active and make sure we're actually live and I'm not somehow screwing this up as I have been prone to do. Maybe I'll check out the YouTube myself to make sure we're live here. Is that a possibility? Somebody let me know if this is up and fully operational here on the live side. As the Clippers run comes to an end. Yes, I can see we are live here. Memphis Grizzlies with G.G. Jackson, with Jalen Wells hitting 6 3-pointers, more than he had hit total in his Summer League campaign. And the Clippers run, but there were still some positive things here. Sal says we are, in fact, live. Thank you, Sal. Appreciate it. There were good things in this one, even though, yes, it was a heartbreaker, as Coach D Sports says. But as Mayor McCheesy would point out, best Clippers Summer League by far, as he can recall. Same here. Certainly the best since, I guess, the SGA Summer League team back in 2018, summer of 2018. Appreciate everyone joining here on the live as we bring more people in. I was live streaming it or live threading it, live posting on X. At Follow Adam May on X is where you find me throughout this one, as I had done the first 2 games of the Clippers Summer League. Look, we'll take whatever content we can get right now. It's kind of a thing where we're going to be praying. We would be praying for Summer League games with the amount of downtime we're about to have as the offseason starts to slow down here. Still think the Clippers have another move in them in the offseason. More on that coming up here. Oh, Extra Ernie TV says we here. What's up, Ernie? Appreciate you. So the Clippers lose this one 99-98 to the Memphis Grizzlies, who will be in the championship game taking on either Miami or the Golden State Warriors tomorrow night. But some really stellar performances to highlight. I do want to point this out, though. One of the things that really affected the Clippers in this game was just the rule change, and it's fine for a semifinal. I agree with it. You went from having 10 fouls you could use throughout the Summer League leading into the semifinals to just having 6. So back to the NBA regulation of just 6 fouls, and then you foul out. And that's what we saw from Jordan Miller. And it seemed to affect the Clippers overall in the game because Kobe Brown had 2 fouls early on. And he only played, I think, 3 or 4 minutes in that first quarter, maybe just 2 minutes before he started to get into foul trouble. That affected him, affected the Clippers overall. Still felt like Kobe Brown ended up showing up in his 25 minutes. He had 17 points, but would miss a free throw to tie the game to likely send it into overtime with 1.7 seconds left. As we have some commentary here from you, that run in the third quarter was what killed the momentum. They couldn't score for actually 6 minutes in that third quarter, as I think Jordan Miller had to head to the bench because he got into foul trouble, eventually fouled out. But yeah, Memphis went on a 12-0 run, and Jalen Wells was just on fire from the outside. More 3-pointers in this game from Jalen Wells at Washington State for the Memphis Grizzlies than he had throughout Summer League total. 6 of 7 from 3, a ridiculous heat check on the 6th made one, a long 3-pointer. Speaking of threes, though, how about Cam Christie? Cam Christie, guys, went 6 for 11 from distance, had a Summer League high for himself, a personal high of 22 points, balled out, had the Clippers' first 9 points. The announcers were so shocked they couldn't even pick up on it. They thought he only had 2 threes to start things off. No, he had 3 threes right off the bat, Cam Christie, and hit them in different ways. First, a step back 3, a tough fall away 3 going to his right, then a set 3-pointer, and then a nice catch and shoot 3 in transition. And Cam Christie had a long 2 in the second quarter. Really good closeout on a missed 3 in the second quarter as well. His defense has been underrated. Guys, Cam Christie, it seems like a false narrative right now with him coming in and being so svelte, thin, undersized. Even though he's lanky, he has the width. He has those long arms to him. He just needs to put a few more pounds on. But Cam Christie's defensive instincts have very much been there. He had a couple of really fine defensive plays in the second half, I'd say, in this one. But he had another 3 in the fourth quarter off a beautiful pass. I think it was the third quarter, off a Kobe Brown attack where he went down the right side of the lane and had a wraparound pass as he was falling out of bounds to Cam Christie in the far side corner for a 3-pointer. And then Cam Christie had some great defense at the 6:30 mark. But that 3-pointer he hit with about, I posted it at Follow Out of May, I think a minute 30 left to put the Clippers back up by 1. A huge shot. Ice in his veins from Cam Christie. That was also in the same far side corner. We've talked about how beautiful the form is from the outside with Christie. And we have a comment here from Coach D Sports. Cam Christie is a shorter Michael Porter Jr. with better defense. Who's been saying it? I said Michael Porter Jr. immediately. When they drafted him, the tape came out. That's what his form looks like. That's how pretty the shot looks. It's art, guys. Now I'm thinking it's kind of in between Michael Porter Jr. and maybe Devin Booker. If you watch Devin Booker and his shot mechanics. But this is, I said it after the first game in Summer League, it is a real NBA skill he has today that can translate to the big leagues in the National Basketball Association. The only question is, can he do enough of the other little things right? Play good defense, play within himself, have a good shot selection, move the basketball, blend in, not stand out for negative reasons as a young player, because he's turning 19 in 3 days. It's crazy. There was another young player in this ball game in Gigi Jackson who played well and has played well, as you would expect throughout Summer League for the Memphis Grizzlies. Actually was under his average, had 20 points when he averaged 21 in the Summer League, and at times looked like a man amongst boys. He has the second most points ever scored by a teenager in the NBA. At just 18, he had a 44-point game last season. And against the Clippers, I took notice, I want to say one of his first games, if not his first game as a pro, he went back and forth with Kawhi for a second. Got his kind of welcome to the NBA moment, but also didn't look like the game was moving too fast for him. So you get this mix of young guys that have gotten a little bit of seasoning in the league, rookies just getting their first chance to play in Summer League like Cam Christie, European players like Bannon of the Clippers, an Australian player, number 51, and then the guys who have been in the G League and are scratching and clawing to try to get more minutes at the NBA level. So some of these games can be very poorly played, and the Clippers went from not being able to make a shot early on against Memphis to having a 35-point second quarter. But overall, props to Dante Jones, because the Clippers have looked like they've had a level of professionalism about them in the Summer League with an identity on the defensive end, with knowing who they want to play through on the offensive end, with Ray J. Dennis being in control of the offense, doing a nice job for this team. Only had 5 points, had a bad turnover late, looking for Moussa Diabate, who I felt like after game 3, Moussa, game 3 was against the Milwaukee Bucks. From that point on, really turned his Summer League around. He had 16 points, 6 boards, multiple putback dunks off of misses from the Clippers, 7 of 10 from the field, couple of steals. Moussa was a plus 10 out there. Led them in that category with the starters. Elijah Harkless was a plus 12. and had a couple of stellar defensive plays, including a strip and score and a dunk going the other way late in the fourth quarter. That was huge as the Clippers were, I want to say, down by 8 late, made a run to get back into this one. As people are pointing out, extra Ernie TV saying G.G. Jackson playing in the Summer League. Not fair. Well, he's still that young, guys. I think it's completely warranted by the Memphis Grizzlies to have him out there. Cam Christie, Chunk Sampson says, was born in 2005. Want to feel old. Yeah. Ernie Extra TV also says he's proud of the young guys. I really thought this Clippers team during the Summer League run to the semifinals, where they went 4-0 to get there and lost to a Memphis Grizzlies team that was just 1 point better, acquitted themselves well. They played, I'm not going to say above their heads, but just a more connected brand of basketball than I expected. And yes, we just gave Elijah Harkless his flowers, even though he struggled, I think, from the field, just 1 of 7. He had 2 steals in the game. One, a strip that went out of bounds off a Memphis player in the first quarter, and then that steal and slam to make it a 1-point game late in the fourth quarter. Elijah Harkless really helped set that tone defensively for the Clippers throughout Summer League. I haven't even started to talk about Jordan Miller much yet. Is Art Arch asks, we got any roster room for any of these guys, or will they be in the G League? I think there will be another move coming up with either PJ Tucker or possibly maybe Amir Coffey. Looks a little bit more, I don't want to say expendable, but movable at this point because of how some of the young guys have played. I know a lot of people, I think it's premature, but have said, Jordan Miller can be the next Amir Coffey out there. I think this game was illuminating in the fact that Jordan Miller ends up fouling out, and some of the defense that the Clippers were able to play in the Summer League when they got 10 fouls, well, that changes for you. Once it's down to 6, that level of aggressiveness, you can no longer play with that. And Memphis played really well offensively in the third and fourth quarters, gained 24 points, 26 points. Remember, they're just 10-minute quarters. And the Clippers had a little bit tougher of a time as Memphis was consistently scoring no less than 24 points per quarter and got to 99 in 40 minutes. Clippers still had the highest scoring quarter in that second quarter when they got really hot and scored 35 points. But you could see the level of play and level of competition going up against Memphis was just different in this game. By far the best team the Clippers had seen. And remember, they didn't have Zach Edey also. So they weren't fully loaded with their complete Summer League team. Bones Highland, yes, could be moved. I could see that happening. I'm preparing myself for that possibility. As Lawrence Frank talked about it at his press conference, he kind of lumped him in with Russell Westbrook and PJ Tucker as guys that are looking for more playing time, maybe larger roles somewhere else if the Clippers aren't able to offer that to them. Eddie Kennedy said bigs outside of Musa and Brown were atrocious. Shaking my head. Yeah, I thought for the most part throughout Summer League, unfortunately, Bannon really struggled. 11 minutes, 3 points, 1 of 2. He did have, I think it was an and 1 opportunity. Yeah, those 3 points came off an and 1, off a really nice pass from Jordan Miller, who had a sequence of plays in the first half. And let's get more in depth on Jordan Miller in this game, who really showed out and was one of the best Summer League players, not just the Clippers' best in the NBA. He had a putback to start with, then a 3 with a bad lineup. He really had to take a lot of the scoring load and put it on his shoulders and carry. Then a layup off a nice feed on an interior pass. I think it was from Harkless. Then he had, and this was the sequence I was talking about, Jordan went at Pippen, Scottie Pippen Jr., on a step through for a nice layup where he really took it coast to coast. Then had that pass to Bannon for the and 1 instead of taking it himself in transition with the Clippers having numbers. And then a 3 near the end of the second quarter. Went coast to coast early in the third, fell to the floor. No foul was called. Just another tough layup by Jordan Miller as he showed that level of physicality he can play with, even though, he's not the biggest guy out there. He still has that body control. We talked about the acceleration to deceleration that we saw from Jordan Miller. It was talked about by Justin Rousseau, in an article recently where he saw guys doing that to him. He needed to make that adjustment. You saw it throughout Summer League. But a couple other plays that I wanted to highlight in this one. He had a 4-point play, and then another 3 in the fourth quarter, started to take over a little bit, but then fouled out at the 4:20 mark of the fourth. So for the Clippers to get down by 8, battle back, have a 1-point lead after that Cam Christie three-pointer with about a minute left, without Jordan Miller on the floor, it did say something about this squad, level of talent and scrappiness, and kind of a will to win and battle back there. We got a prediction here from Mayor McCheesy. My prediction is Tucker and Bones get traded in some scenario together. Well, that's probably what they were looking for at the trade deadline near the All-Star break, and they were unhappy and then got sent home, so wouldn't be shocked at all by that. Jimmy talked about Dennis making a poor basketball or having a poor basketball IQ in the fourth quarter. They were up by 1. He had a bad turnover trying to probe the interior of the defense within the restricted area and made a pass that I don't think Moussa Diabate was ready for, that led to a turnover. That was a tough one. Time and circumstances, inopportune turnover, you could say, from Ray J. Dennis, but he also was someone that shined and the Clippers desperately needed in the Summer League. But after a Gigi Jackson miss late, it was Kobe Brown who was relentless, trying to force the issue a little bit. Picked up probably a little bit of a fortunate foul, I'd say. Memphis could have challenged it, although I think upon replay, it would have been a foul. And even the foul on Jordan Miller, I thought that might have gotten overturned. It was an offensive foul for his 6th foul. He was going to his left. They said he led with his left shoulder. Well, he's a lefty. He was going into his shooting motion. I don't think that was an unnatural basketball movement. So Clippers kind of got a tough break there on that 4th foul by Jordan Miller. But then again, late, it was Kobe Brown drawing another foul, getting to the basket, which he really did over and over again of the ball game. He only made 1 3, the only 3 he took. So 6 of 7 from the field. He was perfect from 2. Kobe Brown getting to his 17 points, but unfortunately missed that free throw to tie the game with 1.7 seconds left. Ended up in a jump ball with 0.1 seconds left, which means it was pretty much an impossible play unless he tipped it in off the jump. Is that even legal? Would have been more of a miracle than the 0.4 Derek Fisher turnaround jumper, where I think they started the clock a little bit late in San Antonio for whatever reason there. But that was back in 2004. Why are you talking about old stuff, Adam? Mayor McCheesy asks, did anybody go to the Intuit Dome event yesterday? Stadium looked incredible. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend. Would have liked to have been there. That Mexican _Nar says, I would like the Clippers to use Norman, Tucker, and Bones for a trade. Maybe Julius Randle. Interesting. KPJ, Mann, or Miller could take Norman's 6-man role. That's been talked about a little bit. Norman Powell, we mentioned it going into last season. We felt like he was one of their best trade assets. Not necessarily that we wanted him to be traded because of his value to this team. I thought he should have finished top 3 in 6-man of the year voting, but just because he's a sought-after guy. Now, he still is owed $18 million annually over the next 2 years. I think if he was an expiring contract, it would be a lot easier to move him. Julius Randle will definitely add a different element to this Clippers team and give them that more traditional power forward. Move Kawhi back to the 3. Then you have a decision to make. Are you going to bring Terrence Mann off the bench and start in the backcourt James Harden next to Derrick Jones Jr. or James Harden next to Terrence Mann, who finally got the starting job? And by the way, the Clippers are about, 40 games over 500 when Terrence Mann starts. So that would add a different wrinkle to rotations and lineups. I don't know. Julius Randle, he is a good regular season type of innings eater. A big body, obviously. Settles for jumpers, though, a lot more than I think you guys realize, or anybody that's talking about getting him realizes. The New York Knicks fan base at times has been very frustrated with him. And his play and efficiency has definitely dropped off in the playoffs. He's had a couple of miserable playoff series for the Knicks. Still a young player. I want to say is around 28 years of age at this point, 29. And his contract situation, let's check on that here. I'm not sure because I thought they just paid him recently. Yeah, they gave him a 4-year, $117 million extension, I think, after that bad playoff series. So you have 1 or 2 years left. Julius Randle, Orange Julius, left on that contract. If the internet would like to cooperate with me. Well, it's neither here nor there at the moment because it's a bit of a hypothetical here. We'll move along. Chunk Sampson says, Norm is a playable postseason player with floor spacing. I think he's more valuable than we give him credit for. I agree with you, especially when you consider Norm was not just in the Clippers' best lineup with the Powell Rangers, with him in place of Terrence Mann, with the starters, that closing lineup next to Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Ivica Zubac, the Powell Rangers. That was one of the better lineups when you look at lineup data in the NBA. They crushed teams. And it was that spacing with Norman Powell, who was good enough defensively, even with those guys all around him, to still not be too much of a negative on that end. So probably has gone a little bit underrated. Now, no Paul George, so you can make the argument that, okay, you don't have the Powell Rangers in that iteration of it anymore. But is Norm even more valuable then because they just need more of a scoring punch? I really do feel like as good as the Clippers have improved, or as much as they have improved defensively with the moves they have made, with bringing in not just Chris Dunn recently as that finally got consummated with Russell Westbrook leaving, but Derek Jones Jr. and Nicholas Batum back, as much of a defensive identity as I think they're creating, which is smart. They need more creators on the offensive end. Norman Powell is one of those guys that is instant offense for them. Without Paul George, you need, I think, another one of those guys. Now, obviously, Kevin Porter Jr. is being investigated by the NBA for the off the court issues. Some people have said he could be the replacement for Norman Powell. We don't even know what his availability is going to be because the NBA is just starting to investigate that. So that's difficult to say that, oh, he could just soak up some of those minutes. And he's a much younger, less proven player, but has averaged almost 20 points per game in the NBA. On the court, he obviously has been a bucket. Art H says, I would love John Collins to play power forward for this team and let Kawhi go back to the 3. He should be affordable to get if Utah is tanking. John Collins has been a name out there for quite some time. Clipper Nation, many of them clamoring for John Collins for quite some time. It is getting exhausting. So I go back to Julius Randle. Speaking of power forwards, he will be 30 by the end of the season, making $28 million. He has a player option for next season at $30 million. So he has a good season. He would opt out and become a free agent and look for another big contract. You may be getting a rental in that situation. John Collins, if you want to look at him and his contract situation, I think he's making around $23 million, I want to say. And he's also right in the same situation. That's guaranteed this season. And then next season, just like Julius Randle, he'd have a decision to make after this year for a player option for $26 million. At the age of 28, he'd likely opt out regardless. He's young enough to get at least, maybe not more annually, but a bigger contract. I'm not sure still if we've had a good enough sample size or a good enough understanding of Kawhi Leonard and what takes less wear and tear off of his body, playing the 3 and running around the perimeter more, or playing the 4 and having to bang in the post more with players that are bigger than him and guard up more. Obviously, he got injured at the end of last season playing the 4. Before that, he was playing the 3 and getting injured at the end of seasons. It's really difficult to kind of delineate the reasons for all of this. It's just, I think, bad luck, and it's hard to ascertain exactly why he got injured or blame him playing a certain position on these injuries. We have Mayor McCheesy again. I saw a potential lineup on the Clippers' big screen at the Dome. Harden, Powell, Mann, Leonard, and Zubas. That's a possible brand new starting five. I would say in this case, Leonard's still playing the four. And Norman Powell and James Harden defensively in the backcourt isn't great, Bob. Maybe they just hadn't had the picture yet for the Intuit Dome for Derek Jones Jr. I don't know if you saw the player profile 360 on Terrence Mann, who was also in attendance for that when they were showing off the new Halo board. Not just dual-sided in 4K, 360 degrees, but on top of it, some T-shirt cannons that could reach anyone in the arena and into a dome. That'll be fun. This is a fun one. Pookie Lover says Thunder really won the trade. Well, you can make the argument they haven't gotten past the second round since the trade, and the Clippers got to the Western Conference Finals. They just brought in Isaiah Hartenstein. They were the number one seed in the West last season and are getting better. So are things looking like they'll win the trade? Sure. Nothing is guaranteed at this point. I still think the Clippers did the right thing. I said a month before Paul George ended up opting out and going to the Philadelphia 76ers for over $200 million that I would not give him the max. I think the Clippers did the right thing in standing their ground and not going into that sunk cost of just, well, we have to pay him because he was part of the trade or the reason they traded SGA technically, even though they did it to get Kawhi Leonard too. And if you leave that context out in the OKC Thunder trade, well, you're either being disingenuous or just a casual, because that was the reason the Clippers did it. So I think it's still a little bit TBD. Does it look like the OKC Thunder are going to end up winning the trade? Sure. At this point, it's pointing that way, and they have about a 5-year window, it looks like, that's opening up for them to win the championship. But we always overestimate with these things and think, oh, this young team or this team's going to be a dynasty. We thought that with the Denver Nuggets. They lost last year in the second round to Minnesota. And the last team to go back-to-back was the Kevin Durant Golden State Warriors team in 2017-2018. So with the new CBA, it's even tougher to go back-to-back in this league and have a run of success like we've seen 25 years ago and just 5 to 10 years ago. It changes everything. It really does. Coach D Sports Review says, for closing purposes, I love a Harden, Man, Kawhi, Batum, Zoo / Kai Jones lineup. Guys, I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with Kai Jones. He's going to get a shot in training camp to prove himself. He may not be on the team to start the year. Mo Bamba's there. Musa Diabate, the last 3 games, especially in Summer League, look really good. Can we pump the brakes, please, on the Kai Jones stuff? It sounds kind of crazy at this point. I think he's averaged 2 points per game as a professional. Let's relax a little bit. I don't think we should be throwing him into any closing lineup. That's just, I can't do it today. Can we get back also to Summer League talk a little bit more here? Speaking of Musa Diabate. So Musa had a putback dunk in the first off a Cam Christie miss from distance, then beat his man down the floor. Got a long outlet pass. I think it was from Harkless. Had a dunk. That put him up 32-30 after the Clippers were down 9 early against Memphis in the Summer League semifinals. I was impressed with, during a 13-0 run by the Clippers, the longest run, one-sided run in the game, when they got back into it and took the lead after being down by 9, he caught a lob that was a little bit too high, put it on the floor, and then put it back up and laid it up. Nice to see that decision-making from Musa Diabate, not forcing it, composed himself, got the easy layup to go. Then had an oop caught from the love, or for the love, of Ray J. Dennis in the third quarter. And I was impressed by this because his man tried to beat him down the floor on the other end after catching this lob. Musa Diabate got all the way back on defense and made a play. It showed off his motor. That's initially what popped with Musa Diabate, that he was this high-energy guy. I don't know if I've seen enough of that after the first couple of games, especially after the first game he played in against Portland and that big 20-point comeback where he got to close things out in the fourth quarter. I think there's been some paralysis by analysis with Moussa Diabate where he hasn't been playing as instinctual as the game was just too sped up. I'm hoping now going into his third year, things are slowing down from him. And there were really good signs in the Summer League over the last 3 games, especially to that point. Then it was Amari Bailey finding him for an easy one. But Moose had a big rebound and putback dunk in the fourth off a Ray J. Dennis miss, and then got a nice push shot to go in the key. So overall, Moussa Diabate kind of played big down the stretch of this ball game. Oh, no. Oh, no. No. Greggy says no Kai Jones at 4. KJ train in full effect. Okay. Now we have Jose asking Adam, do the Clippers own their first round pick next year? That is a good question. I saw in an article from Law that there's something with them and the Houston Rockets and the OKC Thunder where there could be a sweet spot where they might get their first round pick. I need to read that again to confirm that. My understanding right now is the next first round pick they will have is in 2027, but that's still the lesser of 2 first round picks as OKC has the first round pick swap with them. So tough to say at this point. It's a little bit convoluted. Coach D Sports Review said Musa balled out today, but he is too small to play the 5 in the NBA. I don't think that's necessarily the case in today's NBA. He just needs to be a little bit stronger. I think he's capable against certain teams, against certain matchups with how many teams want to play 5 out and how many teams want to play small ball out there. Coach D Sports Review, who's still taking that L after talking about Kai Jones in a closing lineup. Joshua Smith says, you have people like the Pull Up Basketball podcast talking about the Clippers should have gave PG a max contract, and this dude works for the Clippers. I do. And I think, well, I know where my bread is buttered, and you can say I'm biased all you want. I think I can easily make the argument for not giving Paul George a max, which would have put them over the second apron after what occurred last season, another year where their 2 top players could not stay healthy enough when it mattered most. And then Paul George only taking 15 shots per game in a playoff series against the Dallas Mavericks, where Kawhi in 2 games was a shell of himself, and they desperately needed Paul George to step up and at least go out firing. Please. I think that cemented his fate as a Clipper, guys. If you want to get into it a little bit, we've talked about it ad nauseum on C&D. I recently just went on with Rogan and Rodney on AM 570 LA Sports on Friday to discuss this very issue because Fred Rogan was talking about, or at least bringing up, the idea of them paying the wrong guy. He was of the belief that you should have paid Paul George and not Kawhi Leonard. Let me push back against that. Let me make it simple for everyone here. So, the difference in games missed between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard is lesser of an issue than the difference of quality performances when those guys are available. The difference in high level of play versus Kawhi and Paul George is greater, that difference, than the amount of games missed between the 2 of them. Paul George has only played about 5 more games than Kawhi Leonard over the last 2 years. Paul George, even with Kawhi Leonard missing an entire season due to the ACL injury, only ended up playing about 40 more games in his Clippers career. I'd rather go with the guy who, yes, has had more injury concerns, but when he's on the court in Kawhi Leonard, plays like a number 1 at all times. Plays like he wants to be the best player on the court. Plays like a top 5 player in the NBA. Plays like, I don't know, the most efficient player ever over a 30-game stretch in NBA history, which was a run he had just this last season where the Clippers went 25-5 over those 30 games. And Kawhi shot, I think, 57% from the floor and 53% from three over a 30-game sample size. Highest efficiency numbers ever in NBA history over a 30-game span. I'm going with that guy over the guy in Paul George, who has said multiple times he's the number 2 to Kawhi Leonard being the number 1. That is not what they brought him in to do. And it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it. He definitely plays like the number 2. He was supposed to be the 1B to the 1A. He was coming off a season in 2019 with OKC, where he finished top 3 in MVP voting and top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Here we go. Luis Lemus says, Adam, all that doesn't matter because Kawhi is never available for the playoffs. Yeah, Paul George, the last 2 years, in 2022 and 2023, wasn't available in the play-in in the last game and in the playoffs in 2023 either. So the difference in missed games, including regular season playoffs, is slight between Kawhi and PG compared to the great difference there is in performance on the court between Kawhi and Paul George, where Kawhi is just a much better player. I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. I'm sorry. I'm always going to go with the guy who, if available, gives you a chance at a much higher ceiling to beat anybody. That's who Kawhi Leonard is. I understand the last 4 years he hasn't been available in the playoffs, or at least in their final game. I'm still taking my chances with him over Paul George, who, even if he is available, is only taking 15 shots a game against the Dallas Mavericks. This is not hard. My goodness. I'm having the John Cusack high fidelity moment. It's a gif I love where he's just like breaking the fourth wall, asking the audience, how is this possible? One of my favorite movies ever. Jack Black's great in it too. Yes, Derrick Jones Jr. locked up Paul George in that series. Joe Deff points it out. Derrick Jones Jr. made PG unavailable during the playoffs, basically. Wouldn't you rather have a guy that when he's on the court actually always plays like a superstar in Kawhi Leonard, as opposed to Paul George might be playing like a top 10 player that night or a top 40 player that night? I don't know. How many times do people have to say, is Paul George just in a place where he wants to be a role player? How often have I heard that over the years? He's so inconsistent, guys. I love him. Glad he got his money, but come on. Luis Lemus says, Adam, how many more seasons are we going to keep defending Kawhi? I'm defending Kawhi versus Paul George, as why I'd rather have Kawhi than Paul George. Going back to the argument Fred Rogan made where you'd rather keep Paul George than Kawhi Leonard. No, you would not. You'd rather have the guy that gives you the highest ceiling when available, considering they're both unavailable often. There's no defending that. They both been extremely injury prone. Joshua Smith says, how would you feel if the Clippers gave him a no trade clause? To Paul George, not great. Wouldn't have done it. They didn't do it with Kawhi. They weren't going to do it with Paul George. I tried to explain this in January. When they gave Kawhi that extension, that meant the Clippers were setting the market for their roster. Everybody else was either going to take a little bit less or Paul George was going to have to take exactly that. He could say on his podcast that he was ready to take that. And they weren't offering it. Well, reports and guys like Tomer Azarli were saying they were offering it around the All-Star break when they tabled talks. I think the offer was there. I believe the offer was there then. It certainly was there later on. Paul George admitted that. And then said, now we're in the ballpark. Well, you said before you were going to take it. So you were upset because they lowballed you at the start of the negotiations, 2 for $60. Oh, wait, it wasn't 2 for $60. That 60 was on top of the 50 he'd be opting into already in the last year of the contract. So it was actually 110 was the starting point after 2 seasons where he only played 87 games and wasn't available for the playoffs. I don't think that's lowballing. I'm not trying to bash Paul George. I'm trying to give you reasons why the Clippers acted in this way and keeping Kawhi over him and why they didn't want to give Paul George the max. I think it's pretty obvious. And trying to clear up some of the miscommunication or mischaracterizations going on, like, oh, they only offered him 2 for 60? Well, that's ridiculous. They didn't. That wasn't true. It was a misrepresentation or just an omission by Paul George. I don't know if it was on purpose, but everybody took that 2 for 60 and ran with it when it was really $110 million, which was the starting point of the negotiation period at the beginning of last season. Where then, as Lawrence Frank put it, said, as soon as they realized how good this team could be with James Harden, they upped the offers without the agents of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard even asking. They upped it from their side. I think they were being more than fair. Please. Oh, here's somebody. Please say your name. Say my name. We have to fire Lawrence Frank and get the Warriors old GM. You can't even know the guy's name is Bob Myers. No, I think Lawrence Frank is the guy. I'm going with L. Frank. I love everything he said at the press conference. I love everything they have done so far this offseason. This is the first time in a while you really get to see Lawrence Frank cook because the restrictions are off with them being under the second apron and the first apron. Now you're getting to see them play a little bit and build a team the way they would like to. Let's see here. Jordan Pollard says 110 was the starting point. National media with a lie. Well, they were just going off what Paul George was saying. You should push the truth more to the media. I do. At Follow Adam A on X. I do it often. A lot. Let me change the title of this episode while I'm talking here, if it lets me. Clippers lose in semifinals, just to be a little bit more accurate here. It won't let me at the moment, and I don't want to leave what we got going here. Oh, I think it did. So I'm sorry if I'm ranting a little bit, but I just want to be very clear to the false narratives, the casuals out there, the false narrative pushers and the casuals out there. Can we be accurate with our information? And that can be the starting point of any conversations about the Paul George situation and everything else. Let's get the right information out there and then have a dialogue. I hate when people say that. I hate myself right now. Have a conversation. Let's not make it anything bigger than it needs to be. Luis Lemus says, I think Mann and Zoo will step up as leaders now. Hope so. They're 27 and 28. It's time. I hope the Clippers allow them to lead more. I hope the Clippers embolden them, encourage them to take more shots because you got a lot of touches that can be redistributed now between multiple players with Paul George gone from this team. A lot more guys have to take shots. A lot more guys have to be cogs, or not cogs. They have to be part of the machine on offense. To me, if you're going to be successful this season, Big Zoo has to be much more involved offensively. I said in the series against Dallas, I wanted to see him get 17 and 10. If the Clippers are going to win this series, Big Zoo was my X factor. He has to average 17 and 10. Well, what happened in that series? In game one, he has a 20 and 10 game. He was being featured. He was looking dominant. He was making the Dallas Mavericks look very small out there with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. Big Zoo was feasting, and the Clippers won that first game by 20. And Zoo was the best player on the court. So he didn't end up exactly averaging 17 and 10, which may have been why they lost the series. He was at 16 and 9. But I need around there, around 17 and 11 during the regular season this year with the Vita Zubats. I thought he and Terrence Mann were better than Paul George relative to expectations against the Dallas Mavericks. Here was my order of best performers in that series for the Clippers. James Harden, Obviously, no debate. Sorry, Russ fans, it's over. He was always better than Russell Westbrook. It was always obvious to most people, but Russ stands. If it's not more clear than now, well, Russ opted in because his value was not high enough to make any more than the $5 million. Love Russ, but I think the Clippers in the front office had a pretty clear picture of who was the better point guard, who has been, and especially at this point. James Harden averaged 21 points and 8 assists in that series on 45% shooting from the field and 38% from three against Dallas. He was their best player. Second was Big Zoo, 16-9, dominant at times. Third to me was Terrence Mann. One of the reasons that Luka was struggling in that series relative to Luka Doncic against the Clippers, still averaged 29 points, but was shooting 40% from the field, 23% from three. Guess who his primary defender was? Terrence Mann. He was awesome and still averaged 9 and 5 boards and a couple of assists. His defense was elite. Best defense he had played ever. Honestly. And after a season where I thought he got better as it went along, certainly his shooting from the outside, Terrence Mann stepped up defensively in that series. And he was my third best player. Fourth, Paul George. Can't happen. Just can't. You can't take only 15 shots per game. Not with Kawhi only playing 2 games. Not with how much they needed him. Clippers didn't lose that series against Dallas because of their defense. The Dallas Mavericks ended up averaging only 107 points per game. That's nothing in today's NBA. It's the Clippers' offense that killed them in that series, only averaging 100 points per game. That was the difference. So, I agree. Ivica Zubac and Terrence Mann, probably the two most important guys coming into this season. I thought Terrence Mann could possibly be on the trade market just because they brought in Derrick Jones Jr. I didn't want to see it necessarily, but he has a contract extension coming up. If things weren't going well there, would they try to move him for Zach LaVine or somebody like that? I don't think that's happening at this point. He's been one of the faces of the organization. He was just at the Intuit Dome, Halo board unveiling. I think they love Terrence Mann. Rightfully so. Coach D Sports Review says, I hop on, Kai gets a shot, or I hope Kai gets a shot. Adam, not feeling it, but Harden, Kai lobs will feed families. I stand on it. Sure, he'll get a shot in training camp, I think. But guys, him missing Summer League was huge. He's way behind the 8 ball now. They didn't bring in Mo Bamba for no reason. I hope he gets a shot too. Please say your name, says Coach D. I believe it would be good, but looking at it as a GM, it's better to get the 4-0 young Clippers for culture and future plus chemistry. Coach D, I'm not sure what he's trying to say there. Guys, Coach D Sports. Oh, okay, he's responding to him. Coach D Sports is saying Kai Jones is 6'11", 220 more athletic than Musa. Musa's 6'10", 210. If he wasn't crazy, he'd still be on the Hornets, LOL. He was dealing with some mental health issues. Wish I didn't even read that part. Guys, Kai Jones has had a few good games in the NBA. He has a lot of potential because of his athleticism. He also, in the NBA, has played in 67 games total and has averaged 2.7 points per game and 2 rebounds per game. Let's relax, please. Louis Lemus says, what are we doing with Tucker and Bones? We need these guys traded ASAP. I think that time may come. This thing started off talking about the Summer League, and I veered into different subjects pertaining to the Clippers in this offseason. But the Clippers just lost in the semifinal by 1 after Kobe Brown unfortunately missed the second free throw at the line with 1.7 seconds left. 99-98 is the final. The Memphis Grizzlies are going to the Summer League final tomorrow night against either the Golden State Warriors or the Miami Heat. I haven't talked enough about maybe Kobe Brown overall. After he got into foul trouble and only played a couple minutes in the first quarter. Picked up 2 fouls right away. Only gets 6 in the final or in the summer league playoffs after getting 10. And he showed that he was having an issue with foul trouble throughout the summer league. It reared its ugly head again, but he came back in and was aggressive. I love seeing that from Kobe Brown. Had a 3-pointer in the second quarter. Then had a spinning push shot. After being his man off the dribble, going to his left down the left alley, he spun back around and got a little hook push shot to go. Then had a scoop layup in the second quarter, looked athletic. Kobe, I mentioned this earlier, that wraparound kick out to Cam for 3 in the third quarter was beautiful. I put the highlight up at Follow Out of May. Hit a bank shot to start the fourth. It was the first field goal the Clippers had made in 6 minutes. That's when that 12-0 run occurred with the Memphis Grizzlies that you could say in some ways was the beginning of the end or helped decide this ball game. Had an and one in the fourth. Went at Gigi also for a tough layup. But unfortunately, after forcing the issue and trying to get to the free throw line, he missed the second of 2, and the Clippers fell by 1. I'm going to make this comp. I talked about it on our recent podcast on Friday night with Chuck Mockler and Will Updike, but I see people have talked about Draymond Green. That is a high-level comparison or very aspirational, asking a lot and putting a lot of pressure on a young guy. Yes, I see it a little bit. He's a connector out there. He can bring the ball up the floor at his size. I've talked about him being Anthony Mason in some ways with his body type, but he's not nearly as strong or developed as Anthony Mason was. The guy who I think he reminds me of, he's a more athletic version of Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson, with that connectivity, with doing a lot of things really well. And he's bigger and stronger, more athletic, but not looking like at this point he has one elite skill set. That's okay. You could be a great role player doing that stuff. Kyle Anderson just got paid $27 million by the Golden State Warriors because of that. He just had a really good year in Minnesota. Not everybody is going to be an all-star that you draft, even 30th in the first round. I went over a 10-year period from 2006 to 2016. Only 25% of the 100 top 10 picks in the first round, only 25% of those guys became all-stars. It's really hard. You get a good role player that stars in their role. I think Kobe Brown can be that. That's a great pick. Here's somebody talking about him, Coach G Sports Review. Kobe really impresses me when he dribble drives. Yeah, that looks better than ever. Power forward with some ball skills. The Clippers have a need at power forward. My God, Luis, I would really like Markin at the 4. So would everyone? They don't have the assets, man. I'm sorry. Guys, we got to be smarter in this. Markkanen's going to require 3 first-round picks at least and a couple of really good players to get. Stop bringing up his name. For the love of God, the Clippers can't get him. They don't have the assets. The team with the fewest amount of first-round picks over the next 5 years does not have the assets for Lauri Markkanen. Stop, please, bringing that up. You're telling everyone you're casual. Luis, I'm sorry, man. Got to be better than this. Please, let's have some realistic conversations here on CND. Gonna give me a damn aneurysm. Great song by Nirvana. Back to Kobe Brown. Kobe Brown could end up filling a need on this Clippers team. Right now, it looks like Kawhi Leonard's still your starting power forward. I don't know if that's ideal. Unless they want to play Nicholas Batum and start him there. But I think Batum's only going to play 18 to 20 minutes a night. So if you start him in that first stint with Kawhi and he plays the first 8 minutes of the ball game, you have, 10 minutes left to play him the final 3 quarters? And it'll likely be in some closing lineups. Batum's still like that. He's still that good. He's snatching change and burning tattoos. He's like that. Nicholas Batum is an option there sometimes, but I don't know if it's a great option to turn to in the starting lineup because he'll be playing limited minutes, at least in the regular season. Save him, preserve him. Could you play Derrick Jones Jr. there? I don't think so. He's smaller than Kawhi. He can guard up there at times, but I think you'd rather have Kawhi there. Can you play Terrence Mann there? Same situation, smaller. He can do it at times, but oh no, Luis, what are you doing? He is trying to kill me. He's trying to kill me. Let's bring back Morris. If we can't get marketing, we're bringing back Morris. This is not the way, guys. This is not the way. Even though Marcus Morris played a little bit better after moving around the league and playing some for the Cleveland Cavaliers last season. Shout out Marcus Morris, who's still a good Clipper overall. Things didn't end great, but I get it. Not an option. So, could Jordan Miller play the 4? I don't think so. Not right now. Not heavy minutes. There could still be a move being made. I don't think PJ Tucker is going to end up being the guy starting at the 4, even after he somehow started a must-win Game 6 in that position. I think it was a -10 the first 5 minutes of the game. Didn't understand that move. This is kind of interesting. Coach D Sports Review getting a lot of love here in the comments. Kobe remind you of Randall without a mid-range jumper? Not really. Slight comparison. Randall, I think that Kentucky team, did they get at least to the Final Four, was in the championship game? I mean, he was an absolute beast. That was the team that ended up beating Wichita State. Great game in the tournament. Julius Randle got drafted that high for a reason and then broke his leg immediately early on with the Lakers. But he's been an all-star in this league. He might have been an injury replacement. That's a high mark, high bar to reach. I don't see that many similarities. I see him as more of a jack of all trades, maybe a master of none at this point. That's okay. He's still young. And that can get you minutes in the NBA. Do a lot of things really well. You don't have to have a perfect skill or a elite skill in one particular area to get minutes. That may be who Kobe Brown is right now. That can still get you on the floor. And I felt like when they gave him that 10-game sample size in November last year, he was getting better at adjusting to the league the longer he played. I remember against the Golden State Warriors, he struggled at times, had a really bad closeout and a foul on Klay Thompson, I think, on a three-pointer. And he still is dealing with some of those fouls, falling for fakes. The game's still moving a little bit too fast. If it's happening in Summer League still, it's going to be happening at the NBA level. I don't know if he's ready for, a plethora of minutes yet. So we'll see. I'd rather see them get some of these young guys minutes, and I think that's what the Clippers' aim is and what could be a transitional period the next 2 years. It's hard to make the argument you lose Paul George, even with the way they reloaded. I think it's admirable. I think it's the right way to go. They're leaning into defense, but it's hard to make the argument that without Paul George, they're a championship contender. I think it would have been hard to make maybe even with him because of injury concerns. So this could be a period where the Clippers are biding their time a little bit and looking for opportunities while staying really competitive because they have flexibility on the payroll to do that. So young guys should get more opportunities, and I think they will. I think it's a time to develop. You have to. The new CBA demands you to play young guys to find out what you have with these young guys. I don't know how you get by if you're not in the NBA, if you're not having young guys out there for spot minutes here and there, to play real minutes and rotations next to stars. How can you have sustained success with the new CBA? You have to draft well. The only way to know if you drafted well is to play guys. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. I truly believe this Clippers front office and coaching staff is aligned in that fact, that hard truth now that you just know that young guys are going to have to play, and you're going to have to go through the growing pains with them to let them develop in this league. Denver's been really good about that the last 2 years and still won a championship doing so. We'll see. Clipper Nation, as always, really appreciate you. Love doing these lives. This will be the last one after a summer league game as the Clippers fall by one. 99-98 was your final in favor of the Memphis Grizzlies. They move on to the championship game tomorrow night against either. Can I get a score update? Can I get a summer league score update? Anyone watching that game going on right now? I think it's happening live. Between I got it for you. At the half, the Golden State Warriors up 47-45 over the Miami Heat at the half. So a good one that will decide who the Memphis Grizzlies face in the championship game tomorrow night. But I thought there was a lot to take away and a lot of positives mostly to take away from this Clippers during this summer league run to the semifinals. This was as encouraging as you could get with the progression we saw from Jordan Miller, turning into a guy who coming into this game was averaging 25 points per game in the summer league and had another 20-point game in this one, fortunately in a losing effort where he would foul out, but he had 28 points, so his average is only going up. Make the argument, was one of, if not the best player this summer league. I don't think a lot of people expected that. I don't think people expected the three-point shooting to be there at the level it was after I think he only shot 30% over the last year in the summer league, but maybe it's something he's working on. Another tool to his toolbox. Be a 3-and-D player. That's what we thought he could project out to. I see some Trevor Ariza in his game a little bit like that from Jordan Miller. Trevor Ariza was a good role player in this league for a long time, 3-and-D guy. But Kobe Brown finishing with 17. After a slower start to the summer league, a strong finish for him, even though he missed that free throw. Moussa Diabate, same thing. That took him a little bit to get his sea legs as a Clipper. Finished with 16 points, 6 boards. Came on in the third game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Continued strong play afterwards. And then Cam Christie, his best game in a clutch opportunity, in a must-win situation to move on. Had 22 points, a clutch 3 in the far side corner to help them take the lead. 7 of 13 from the floor. 6 of those 7 makes from Cam. I am him, Christie, with his brother in attendance once again watching him and doing a courtside interview if you want to hear it. Follow out of me on X. 27 minutes, 22 points, 6 3-pointers for Cam Christie. Had the first 9 points of the game for the Clippers. Can't say enough about him. He's turning 19 in 3 days, guys. Awesome. Awesome pick from the Clippers. Let me ask you this. If the draft takes place today, here's what I'm saying. I don't think Cam Christie's going number 46. He might get into the first round with how good he's looked in Summer League. I'll ask you that. Get to me at Follow Adam A as we're ending this pod, but I think Cam Christie has shown enough, and enough people have taken notice of that sweet shooting stroke that he would be maybe a late first-round pick if the draft started today. I really believe that. That's how far he's come this quickly just by the way he's performed in Summer League. So one more guy to highlight here for the love of Ray J, Dennis. Thought he was good overall. Helped control the offense. Had a bad game today. 5 points with just 5 turnovers to 4 assists. Or with 5 turnovers, too many to 4 assists. But overall, he showed out. Elijah Harkless, that defensive intensity from him. And made the Summer League MVP for the Clippers, Dante Jones, their head coach, said he's trying to make sure these guys are ready and staying ready and playing the right way so that when they move up to play under Coach Lue, they'll be prepared for those minutes when they should come. Stay ready, Clippers. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I think Montrezl Harrell was the first to say it back in 2018. This has been another live edition of Clips and Dip. I'm Adam Auslund for Chuck Mockler, for Will Updike. I'm signing off. We love you guys. We'll talk to you on a future episode of the Clips and Dip podcast. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Check out Game of Thrones. House of Dragons been better than I thought. Turns out, the more dragons, the better. Not shocking.